You are only one decision away from a totally different life. Just one. It may be big, it may seem simple, but it can change your world. What is your one decision? In this podcast, I will tell stories, give you tools, inspire you, and hopefully give you strength to make that one decision. Remember that inaction is an action, indecision is a decision. Purposeful decisions allow you to have control over the direction you go. Make that one purposeful decision and see where it takes you. For today's podcast, I took a little drive out to Marker Cellars Winery in Alvord, my hometown, and not very far from my house. It was a beautiful fall day, and while I had grand plans of doing some of the interview outside, the wind just would not cooperate, so some still photos will have to do. Technological issues and my lack of expertise caused some other issues with the interview, but it is put together, and I know you will get some great insight. But first, a photo tour of the layout. As you enter, you are greeted with signs of the winery, cigars, and a beautiful barn quilt. Also, you see a glimpse of the vineyard off in the distance. As you pull in, there's a directional giving you distances to other vineyards. The horse barn and the vineyard surround the parking area. Here's a closer glimpse of the vines and the vineyard. As you'll learn in the video, it is going to sleep since it's fall, so it's not as full and lush as it was just a short while ago. The beginning hints of Texas fall is the backdrop for this beautifully peaceful scene. Here's another view of the vines as they're becoming more and more bare, but surrounded by lush trees. Such a beautiful day. I love Texas falls. The entrance to the tasting room and the rest of the property is a bit deceiving. While welcoming and relaxing, it's hard to tell just what lies beyond the door. Upon first entering the tasting room, you see some seating and offers not only wine and cider, but gifts and some history and information as well. Stay tuned to the end to hear about this special place of honor. They have a vast array of wines, and they're available for every palate. Some gifts and Marker Cellars swag are available as well. Ezra Zion Cigars has its own special place in the winery. Grab a cigar and a glass of wine, and you're promised a relaxing afternoon on the porch. As you make your way out to the porch, you'll be surprised at just how big it is and the views. This huge area hosts plenty of seating, and as you will hear during the interview, often they will host live music, food, and lots of fun. On cold days, the far end is closed off to block wind, and out come the outdoor heaters. Marker is open year-round, weather permitting, for your enjoyment. The two large roll-up doors can open up into the event center and expand the porch area The horses are often seen grazing by the fence. The view off the back of the porch overlooks the pasture area for the horses. The opposite end of the porch gives you another glimpse of the vineyard. Off in the distance is the horse barn, and of course you'll see the barrel tree. This became a staple after it was assembled for Christmas. On beautiful Saturdays or Sunday afternoons, this area is full of families sitting out and children playing. The barrel tree is the perfect backdrop for photos. Here is the event center. You'll hear from Mark about the various events they hold in this room. It's also a place to store the barrels, and as you can see here, the doors that open out onto the back porch area. Plenty of room for tables, chairs, dancing, yoga, and whatever else you may need in this space. This is the barrel room where the magic happens. In the video, we catch a glimpse of what happens in this room with the fermentation process. Marker Cellars is located in Alvord, Texas, and has become the go-to place for locals and not so locals for fellowship and relaxation. In this podcast, we'll hear the story, the process, and the heart of the owner, as well as his one of many decisions throughout his lifetime. Mark and Becky Rogers are the owners and a staple at the winery, greeting and talking to the visitors as they would old friends. Go to www.markercellars.com for location, times, and any other information you may need. I'll provide a link for you in the description below. Please like, share, ring the notification bell, and follow the One Decision podcast on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Now join me as I sit down with the Vinekeeper and mastermind behind this amazing place and the heart of someone dedicated to serving others, Mark Rogers. Welcome back to First Decision. This is Connie Swain with my friend Mark Rogers today.
Hello.
I'm glad you came back with me. While you're watching this podcast, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and give me any comments if you have any comments that come up. And today we're going to talk to Mark about his one decision. When you find out what a change he made, I'm hoping that it will encourage you to maybe make the changes you need to make in your life. So Mark, I tell you what, thank you so much for doing this with me.
My pleasure.
I'm out here quite a bit, pretty familiar with the winery, and Mark and I also have known each other for several years, serving on committees together in town. We're very community minded, civic minded,
Yep.
So like-minded in that way. So yeah. So Mark, tell us a little bit first of all about your family.
Oh, well, so my parents' roots emanate from West Texas.
Uh-huh.
My grandmother on my dad's side came to her home in Tulia, Texas, via covered wagon from Missouri and that area. And just what I find interesting about that is one of their first home was a dugout.
Really?
Just outside of Tulia. And Tulia is just a little spot in the road, but and the reason they chose Tulia is because not too far from there is Tool Canyon, and that was the only place to get water. It's down in the bottom of the canyon because their irrigation hadn't really taken off in that part of the world back then. So anyway, and then so my mother's side, they came from Missouri also, but they went to Lubbock. So my mom,
not known as wine country.
No, not back then. So my parents ended up getting married after my dad got out of the Air Force, and they had me, and so I spent the first 5 years of my life in Lubbock, and then on to Midland, because my dad was a geologist, and we followed the oil patch all around the state of Texas until I went off to college.
Wow.
But the real thing that I remember most about that family background is that folks on the high plains of Texas, they are hard working folks. They do know how to party, but at the same time, the work ethic there, I was introduced to it at a very, very early age by my grandfather, and it's one of those things that has stayed with me through my continuing careers.
Yes. So when did you meet Becky?
So Becky and I met in Houston, Texas in 1980.
Oh, yeah.
We were both coming off of a divorce.
Oh, okay.
And one of my buddies asked me to help him coach a girls' softball team.
Oh.
And so they all worked in the oil industry, service company related type stuff, and I was doing other stuff, not related to that at all. And so I showed up, and here's this good-looking young lady that was also the fastball pitcher on the team, and I didn't, and she was dating my friend at the time.
Oh my gosh!
I just laid low and
till your time came.
Well, until she approached me and says, "Why don't you ask me out?"
Oh my God!
And being the shy and noble person that I am, I said, "You're dating Bill. I'm not asking you out.
Right.
That's crossing the line." But anyway, eventually we did get together.
That's incredible.
Yeah. It was an interesting departure for us both.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things, if you come out here, Mark owns Marker Cellars Winery in Alvord, Texas, which is what we're really going to be talking about. But if you come out here, you'll see horses, you'll see a horse barn, and Becky is very involved in horsemanship, in trail riding and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's one of the joys of being out here. You can sit and drink a glass of wine and watch the horses, right?
Yeah, that's right. It took us a long time to get here.
Yeah.
But it's a joy living in this part of the world.
Has she always been involved in horses?
Yes, she grew up with horses.
Okay.
She had her dad owned a machine shop, but in their backyard they had a lean-to, and she had a horse from like 8 years old on. So she's always been around horses, except for our time outside of Texas.
Oh wow! And when did y'all live outside of Texas?
I have my corporate career. I mean, it's kind of a funny story. I didn't like what I was doing at the time. Becky already had a job. We were dating. We weren't even married yet. And I saw an ad in the Houston Chronicle paper for a mortgage company that was looking for an operations manager. And I've always one of the gifts that I was given by I think more my grandparents than my parents was my ability to talk to people. And so I answered the ad. They set up an interview, and I basically talked my way into that getting hired by bugging the manager for about 2 weeks. And he says, basically he says, "You're not going away, are you?"
I'm not leaving you alone.
Yeah. So anyway, I started that new career in 1980, and then Becky and I got married in 1981. But in 1985, another company approached me and said, "Hey, Mark, we've got this company out in California that we could really use your expertise." Whatever that was. I'm not really even sure what that was. The gift of gab, the gab, maybe. He said, "We'd like to offer you to move to Los Angeles and help us rebuild a company."
Oh goodness!
That is a service company to the mortgage industry.
The mortgage industry, yeah.
And so in 1985, we moved out there. We had one daughter at the time. My in-laws hated me for pulling the family out and moving to California.
Of all places, Los Angeles, not just California, but LA, right?
But the opportunity was that Becky could stay home. It would eliminate her having to work. That way she could spend more time with our child and our next child as time would go on. And the opportunity for me was, number one, I'd never been to California. That was one thing. But it was just, my eyes just opened up to the world. It was it was an awesome experience because there's so much, you can never be bored and live in California. Not because of all the negative things, but because of the national parks, the state parks, the beach camping capabilities, attractions from the high desert to the low desert down to San Diego and all of that stuff. Well, so we used every minute of free time that we had to explore the state and learn. And then when we would go out of town for the weekend, on Sunday, driving back into the city to get either in my case, to go catch an airplane to go someplace else, we would stop at mom and pop wineries.
Oh, okay.
And that's really how I didn't know anything about wine back in that day. And over time, got to meet really my mentor, Fess Parker.
Oh, wow.
Whose picture is up on the wall here in the winery. And flash forward to 1994, corporately, we decided to shut down that operation that we had rebuilt and move it to Irving.
Really?
Yeah. And so Fess challenged me. He says, you know, Mark, I know Texas. He was born in San Antonio. I know you can grow grapes. So create yourself a little test vineyard and see what grows and what doesn't grow. And I'm challenging you to learn how to make wine.
Oh, goodness.
So I didn't hesitate. That was an easy decision for me. And so that kind of, in the background, I'm still working corporate world for a lot longer.
And when you moved from LA, though, where did you move to?
Argyle, basically.
Oh, Metroplex, but Argyle,
Yeah.
Which isn't that far from here.
No, it's
It's on the western side of the Metroplex.
Yeah, it's 55 minutes from here.
Yeah.
The whole
Is that where you did your test winery?
Yes, I put in
Really?
I put in a 1/4 acre test vineyard, and then eventually took over one of Becky's stalls of her barn and
To make the wine.
created my own little test kitchen, if you will.
Really?
Yeah. So we moved back to Argyle in '94, or excuse me, we moved back to Texas in '94, and Mark being Mark, I said, well, you know, let's move back to Texas and we'll have some land and we can have, I can build you a barn and you can have horses. And so it was a little bit.
All I need is this much.
Well, and I mean, the girls were very happy and living where they were living. But we needed to be closer to our parents, both of them
Getting elderly.
yeah. And so anyway, that was the compromise to get us the 5.5 acres that we bought. And start the winemaking process while I was still working full-time corporately.
Okay.
Right. So I really didn't, well, I guess I should set this up a little bit better. Becky does competitive trail riding, and she is also a judge in her sport. And so she travels now across the country to judge those rides for people. You know, it's not for pay.
No.
It's for love of the sport. But it's allowed us to see some parts of the United States and experience some parts of the United States that we would have never done so otherwise.
Especially with trail riding.
That's right.
Because it's a totally different sport. You go to different terrain, different parts of the country.
Yep.
So that's incredible. That's incredible.
Well, we kind of compromise on our travels. Because like in August of the last 2 years, she's been asked to go to Mendocino County in California, up in the Redwood Forest.
Oh, yes.
To judge a ride there. So she does her 3 days of horsemanship stuff and judging and whatnot, and then we take off 3 days and go
to the
wineries. So
of course you do. I don't blame you.
It's a win-win for both of us.
So when you were in that little place in Argyle, did you come up with your own recipes, or did you? You did. That's incredible. Were there a lot of hits and misses, or did you feel like you did a pretty good job with coming up with some good ones?
So it's less about recipes as it is doing the best job you can do with, for lack of a better description, what God gave you.
Right.
So
it's more about technique and blends
sanitation
and all that.
Paying attention to detail and whatnot. And I'm such a nerd. I mean, once I got into it, not unlike my corporate life, I put the same degree of effort and decision making into that passion for the winemaking part of this that I did in my operations life. You know, it's it's kind of interesting to me anyway. Throughout the corporate career, you know, I made tons of friends, met people, saw places of the U.S. that I would never have been able to see any other way. And the best takeaway from all that is when I retired 5 years ago, the people that worked for me said, if you do this again, you call me, I want to come work for you.
Oh, wow.
And so
there's no higher compliment.
It's making sure that you take people under your wing and take care of them, or help them, teach them how to make decisions, how to be a better manager, how to be a better motivator for others. And I've tried to, this is our 10th anniversary at the end of the month here.
Yes.
Since we opened the winery, and I kind of glossed over all that, but we've lost 2 employees in 10 years.
Right.
One of them moved to New England and got married. And the other one took a job in another state because his wife moved.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's, that's the best compliment that I could ever receive.
It's a legacy.
Yep.
It is.
Yep. Yep.
So what made you decide from Argyle, what made you to decide to buy land out of here and tell how large your property is?
Okay.
You've got a large property.
So I have to back up just a little bit.
Okay.
So that test vineyard in Argyle, I ended up not planting that until 1996, and then started producing, homemade wine in 1999. And then I was busy with my corporate life, and my dad got sick, and that's a whole nother story. So in 2005, I decided to go to a viticulture and enology school, and there's a college up in Denison, Grayson County College, that has a 2-year weekend program for both winemaking as well as vineyard management and that sort of thing. So I would either go all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and then go back to work on Monday. And
that's a grueling schedule.
Yeah. And then while that was going on, some people that were my customers in the mortgage business approached me in 2005 also to partner with them to start a distressed asset mortgage company. Oh. Because they and me felt like that market was going to change.
Yes.
And that people were putting mirrors in front of people to give them a mortgage instead of actually underwriting it and doing the things that are required so that we don't have an upside down economy.
Oh, because we haven't ever been through that
No,
before.
Never. No, I tell people often, it's a cycle.
Yes,
Just stay tuned, it's a cycle.
It is.
So anyway, we started that company in 2005. Went to Wall Street, raised money through some, and I can say this because I'm retired from the mortgage industry, vulture capitalist, not venture capitalist,
but vulture
capitalist. The first raise was $125 million, and things started happening. And after we started the company, the mortgage market started to change. Every investor that we got money from doubled down, came back, and we topped out at $425 million.
Goodness gracious!
In raise. That gave us the ability to go out and purchase pools of assets that, or to link with Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac or any big bank that is still in business today that you could name, because they didn't know how to deal with distressed assets. Here's this guy that's an athlete or a lawyer, either one, because they both do this, They're in this gigantic house. They have all these expenses, but he's not making his mortgage payment. And then you get down to the nitty gritty in an interview with that whoever that person is, and you find out all of the toys and expenses they have, plus, and this is no lie, 1 or 2 mistresses, and that's where all the cash is going. And so our job was basically to say, we don't think you can afford to stay in this house.
Right.
Here's an opportunity for you to be able to get out. Or the alternative, which was,
we're going to take it over.
You're going to have to, we're going to have to foreclose if you can't, if you can't work with us to be able to do something. So anyway, we get to 2007, and our relationship with the vulture capitalist started to change to the point where I would have somebody from the New York office call me on New Year's Day and want me to go to the office and run a report for him. And to that I say, no, not happening.
Yeah,
I'm with my family today.
Yeah, it can wait.
The house is not going to burn down overnight.
No.
So, and that's at the same time I came to the conclusion. I said, I went to Becky and said, I don't know how long I can do this. Not sure, I don't want to leave my partners in a lurch, but let's think about what we want to do after corporate life. And so we started looking at property, actually from North Texas all the way down to the hill country.
Okay.
And for the entire time that we lived in Argyle, Becky would hook up with some of her horse riding friends, and they would come out here to the LBJ grasslands to ride the 75 miles of horse trails that exist out here.
And the entrance to one of the main trails is what, a couple of miles, or if that, from here?
Yes, it's barely 3 miles.
Yeah.
And so she and our next door neighbor back in Argyle at the time were driving back home from the trailhead where they were over in Tadra, which is the opposite east side of LBJ grasslands. And they happened to be passing by this property. And the owner of the property had just been put in a nursing home, and so his kids were putting up the property for sale. And they had put up a sign that says 45-acre lots.
Oh, wow.
4 of them are available. Blah blah blah. She stopped, called me, said, I think we found it. And so we ended up making an offer on 90 acres. And the unique thing about this land, which is why we have a winery here, is because we are bordered on 3 sides by the LBJ grasslands or national forest property. So that 90 acres is like having 900 acres.
Yes.
It was a no-brainer. The decision was, why wouldn't you do this?
Yeah, exactly.
So we ended up buying the property. At the time, I didn't have a long-term plan. Didn't think about it. I just wanted the land. And I figured that I would, between Becky and I, we still had 1 daughter at home. So this was going to be a long-term play, not a short-term play. So I kept my day job, come out here every weekend, and take out cedar trees and mesquite trees because they suck water.
Just so you know.
And started in 2008, planted the vineyard, the first vineyard, again, just to see if I could. And that was 100% Syrah vineyard. Started doing that. And then the idea came to me one day while I was on the tractor. What if I started a winery? So I talked to Becky about that, and she was fully supportive of the idea and whatnot. And so we started changing the landscape, when I say that, in and around where our winery building is today, and wanted to tame it, so to speak. Previous owner had cows on it for a long time. All the grasses had been really overgrazed and whatnot. Then we decided, well, we're not going to run cows. We're not going to make little horses. So we applied for our wildlife exemption with Wise County. And that didn't really go well because with the tax collector at the time, you city folks, you just want to move out here and not pay taxes and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so it took a little bit of work to get that figured out. But it was a brand new state law in the state of Texas that allowed us to be able to apply for a wildlife exemption. And we did it and we got it and whatnot. And then, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, in the meantime, I'm continuing to work my day job. And then even though I was on a track to open a tasting room, I didn't really have a extensive business plan, but I knew that I know what I need to know to get started. And I just told myself that, God will show me the way. Yeah. And we'll figure this out. Yeah. And so that's what we did. We built this building out in thirds, incrementally over time. When we opened up in October of 2012, over the first 3 years, we grew every year by, a small percentage, but it was, and it was just me. I mean, I was working Saturdays and Sundays, opening the tasting room, pouring wine for people, making wine when I had time. And then it got to the point where our company, my day job company, got bought out. And that allowed me to retire, as my daughters say, from that corporate life.
So your one decision was actually made for you.
Absolutely. And
I love this.
It was, it couldn't have happened any better.
That's awesome.
So it allowed me then to focus 100% of my time on the winery business and grandchildren, admittedly, but it opened up a whole different world to me. Yeah. And then we moved out here permanently once Carla went off to college, and found out that we should have done it 10 years earlier.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. I tell that story to people all the time. Sometimes you just have to let your gut tell you. I've never been shy about making decisions, right or wrong, admittedly, but at the same time, the worst mistake is to not make a decision. Right. I believe that with my heart. Sitting and toying and troubling yourself with indecision is a lot worse for you, both mentally and physically, than making that decision. And if it's wrong, so what?
Yeah, I say all the time on here, inaction is an action, indecision is a decision, and sometimes what we don't understand is if you don't make the decision, it will be made for you. And sometimes to your benefit, sometimes to your detriment.
To your detriment.
And so it's better for you to be in control of your destiny, as it were, because you're purposeful about making those plans and those decisions. So I love that. Well, I'm gonna get some pictures and show the vineyard. As you said, the vineyard's going to sleep because it is the fall. But I know you've had several challenges with your vineyard.
Oh, yes. One thing about winemaking, as well as the vineyard portion of this business is, it's farming and chemistry, right? We don't have control over our entire environment, especially here in North Texas, right? We get a lot of strong winds in the wintertime, and late spring. And so that Syrah vineyard that I planted in February of 2008, after the 8th leaf or 8th year of its existence, I noticed it started to die. Vines were dying from the inside out of the vineyard. And so I sent some samples off to Texas A&M in College Station, and they came back and said, "Mark, you've been hit with 2,4-D." And I go, I didn't even know how to spell that back then.
Right.
2,4-D is an agent that both hay farmers and other farmers use to control weeds, and it is lethal to grapevines. And so we surmised that we got drift from one of the 14 or 15 hay farmers that are to our north and northeast and west. When applying a 2,4-D product or something like that, you have to mix it with an oil or something, or soap even, that would allow it to sink and settle on what you're trying, the objective of trying to kill that, wherever, whether it's grass or weeds or whatever it is. And apparently somebody didn't do that. And so we got 2,4-D drift. That, and for those of you that don't know, this stuff can drift in a cloud 3 to 5 miles. So it was.
There's no way of knowing how,
yes.
where, when, or what.
And I wasn't going to go knocking on doors.
No.
Say, hey, did you? That wasn't.
You just count it lost and start over,
That's
right?
And so we replanted the vineyard and increased the size, and then Snowmageddon hit and wiped out that vineyard. So we
It wiped out everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we ended up replanting again. I told myself then, I said, this is probably going to be the last time I do this.
Yeah.
And so Snowmageddon 2 comes, and we only lost 250 vines out of the 1,000 that we had planted. And we had a backup plan. So my vineyard manager, full-time vineyard manager now, is an ag teacher, and he has a nursery at the school. And so we took cuttings and created our own nursery.
Oh, there you go.
Excuse me, of vines to be able to have as backups. To if a one and done vine dies off, we just replant it with our own stuff. So, anyways, and now the vineyard is
doing very well.
It's doing very well. It really did thrive this summer, but we won't be taking fruit off of it until next year.
Yeah. That's just part of it.
That's just part of it.
So when I came in, you had said the barrel room. You talked about the barrel room because you have some product working in there. Explain. I did a little bit of video, took some pictures.
Okay. Yeah. So this is the end. So we're on October 12th, right? So this is the end of the Texas harvest season. Harvest in our state starts as early as the middle of July. And can go to the end of October. And one of the last grapes that it just takes a long time for it to mature. In other words, for it to get the sugar levels, the Brix levels into the fruit, to be able to, for us to be able to make a really, really nice wine out of that. We call it hang time. So it's been hanging on those vines, and there's always a race to be able to cross your fingers and let the Brix continue to rise, so you can make a stronger alcohol percentage wine before the first fall freeze happens.
It's a fight.
It is a fight. So we brought in, I helped another winery, Blue Ostrich, up in St. Joe. We processed basically 10 tons of Mourvedre on Monday. And even though I wasn't expecting any fruit, I ended up with a little bit more than a ton of the Mourvedre. I call it Mourvedre. And it started out at 28 Brix, which will produce a 14% alcohol based wine. And it's some of the prettiest fruit that I've seen in the last 3 years.
Oh, that's great.
So we'll
given what we've been through the last 3 years in our climate, that's wonderful.
And
that's
we're excited. It's always when you one of the best rewards out of the winemaking process for me, from a nerd perspective, is when you are fermenting. There's nothing that beats the smell and the excitement around fermenting of grapes. I mean, obviously I'm prejudiced, but it smells like you're walking into a bakery.
It does.
And there's fresh bread coming right out of the oven or on the rise over there in the back or what have you. Basically, working to get the color out of the skin into what will come to wine. And also keep that yeast working, finding the sugar feed. It's releasing gases as the yeast starts to eat the sugars and turning them up. Being a country boy from West Texas and thinking about how I've ended up.
Yes, I know. It's totally different.
It's not one of those things. So people ask me that come to the winery, go, so did you always want to make wine? And I said, ma'am, I couldn't spell wine, first of all,
right?
Until the mid 80s.
Yeah.
And then I got smart.
Yeah. I love that. Well, one of the things I wanted to talk about is some of the, to me, one of the best parts of this location is your beautiful porch and how there's such a family style atmosphere.
Yeah.
I've been to different wineries where you go in and you sit down and you taste the wine and then you leave. And one of the things I love about it here is you can go sit outside on that beautiful porch, looking at the horses, looking at the stock tank, looking at the barns or whatever, and people that you would never meet just come over and sit and start talking. And from all over, did you realize, was that part of you? No, you just built the big porch, right?
No, I mean, it's one of those things, I know it sounds corny, but if you build it, they will come.
That's true. That's true.
And so, as I mentioned earlier, there was not a vision other than the operational aspects of we're going to do this.
It just came out of.
It came out of
the
not
next
only people that we met along the way and the friendships that have been made along the way, but also the evolution of and maturity of the winery.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're sitting in our tasting room, and where Connie and I are sitting, where my arms are sticking out forward. That was the first tasting room.
Oh, it was small. It was small.
You couldn't get 12 people in here, and especially in the wintertime. I mean, everybody's standing. And this back here was my barrel room.
Oh, okay.
That's where I made the wine. This was the first third of the building.
Oh, wow.
We had a big plate glass window here, so that people could, if
come
they
in
came
and
in,
see the barrels.
I'm back there doing something, and one of the employees is working the tasting room, and they're watching me, or they're clicking on the glass.
Yeah. I love that.
And then about 6 years ago, I was out of room in here, so we built on the next third of the building, and that way we were allowed to expand this as the tasting room, move the barrel room back there. We didn't have the event center yet. That was the next third of the evolution, because our little town does not have, for those of you that don't know, we don't have a community center. And
we don't even have a good restaurant.
Well, that's a totally different conversation.
I mean, we don't have, in other words, there's no real gathering place here at all.
And I had been helping's the wrong word. I offered up the place before we built out the event center to the volunteer fire department for them to be able to do their annual recognition, employee recognition,
yes,
and awards, banquet, and whatnot. And then some of my young ladies that work for me says, Mark, we should do weddings here.
Oh, wow.
We don't have time to talk about that.
Well, but the event center is great because people utilize it. I've seen birthday parties. I've seen, of course, they do yoga. There's a lot of different events.
We've had a memorial service for 150 people.
Really?
The biggest wedding that we've had was 75 people, 75 or 80. As you said, bridal showers, birthday parties, both for little kids as well as
adults.
And
it's very family friendly.
Yeah.
And that's one of the best parts. I know on the weekends a lot you'll bring a food truck out or something, and there will be a lot of people out here. They bring their chairs and set out on the lawn and
listen to the music.
Yeah, you have live music.
The one of my primary goals in doing all this, as it began to evolve, is I don't want to be pretentious about this. I want this to be a comfortable, chill environment. I don't want to have to walk in like so many places in California or elsewhere. You walk into the winery and you're afraid to touch anything.
Yes.
Because you're going to do something wrong.
Well, and I know I've come out here where you're covered in wine, so.
Sure. Yeah,
and you're waiting on customers, so.
It just depends on the day, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But one of my decisions was in pre-COVID was brought on by my kids, saying, "Dad, you can't do this forever. You need to think about having some you time, you and mom time, and oh, by the way, you need to come see your grandkids up in Wisconsin."
Right.
and so that has always weighed on me in terms of how will this end. I'm not worried.
Yeah.
It is an evolutionary thing.
It has been.
Yes.
From the beginning.
That's right.
So it'll go to the next phase, whatever that may be,
That's
right?
And we'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
And we'll make a decision.
I love that.
It's just the way that.
And you work hard.
But I play hard too.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, so one of my employees, such a sweetheart, got me a Fitbit because people would make bets on Saturdays
on how many steps
because they're seeing me walking up and down the patio and up and down the patio, or here's a charcuterie board, or here's a cheese and meat tray, or here's more wine for the tasting room, or whatever. And it became a little bit of a joke, but it has also kept me young.
Yeah.
I'll be 70 in February.
Really?
And when I tell people that, they go, "No, that can't.
Yeah. Wow.
That can't be true."
Yeah.
I think it's it's just a way to enjoy yourself, and it does also help to keep me in better shape than sitting behind a corporate desk.
Exactly.
Or riding on an airplane.
Yeah.
Or talking to a bunch of yahoos in New York City.
Yeah. Well, there's two other things I wanted to talk about. One, of course, I want you to share a little bit more about how you can be part of the winery, which I'll get into that in a moment. But your drive to not just have your business, but your drive in your heart for our community, which of course is how you and I met in community involvement. But the winery, not just the physical part of it, but also your choosing to be involved in the community and support the community, like financially and by donating and all those things, has been huge. Were you always that community minded, or why did you feel like it was important to do that as well?
So I guess the easiest way to answer that is I've always been proud to serve. Whether it was back in the day when we lived in Argyle, I didn't grow up in the church. Becky did, so she kind of pushed me to get involved with her and the kids in our local Methodist church, and that
gave you a desire. Yeah,
the service heart aspect was first noticed by my grandmother on my dad's side, and so I just kept remembering that. I've been blessed with so many things. I've got a great family. Love all of my kids, and I watched my dad and other people not give back. Right, and so that always stuck with me. So that reach out that we did at the church opened up to being on the finance committee, and then being part of the normal 20 people after a church luncheon who always have to put up the tables and chairs because nobody else will do it
and clean up and mop out.
And then that evolved, and then of course we ended up leaving Argyle and coming out here, and I said I've been exposed to so many things, and honest God, I'd rather be lucky than good. And the things that I have fallen into in a right way, in a positive way, throughout my working career and life, told me, I think I could give some new ideas based upon what I know or have been exposed to in other parts of the world.
Oh wow!
And so that's how
you got into that.
Got involved in that here in our little burg.
Yeah.
And it was, it's been an evolution too. With that, because
there are challenges.
Yeah.
But
you're much more diplomatic than me.
Yeah. Well, there are challenges. Our little town, neither one of us live inside the city limits, but it only has 1,000 people, and there's a lot of politics and that kind of thing. However, there's a very strong family, community-minded atmosphere.
And you and I have both seen, it's not a sales pitch. We've seen the need for people from the Metroplex and from other parts of the region and outside of our state, for people wanting to get out of the metro mess, as I refer to it, and come to a more family-oriented
and find that community.
And doer environment, being here, and
I know it's been a blessing. It's a huge blessing.
One of you and I haven't talked about this, but one of the benefits of having this winery is, and it's not about me. It's just the image that we've built, what have you. I cannot go to Decatur or Bridgeport, sometimes Bowie, without somebody recognizing me and going, "Hey, Mark, how you doing? How are the grapes coming along?"
Yeah, exactly.
I meet hundreds of people, over a weekend normally, and I may not know the name, likely not, but I'll recognize the face, pretty good at that. But the name, forget the name. And I just smile and either have a conversation with them or say, everything is awesome, and come out and see us again, and blah, blah, blah. That's very rewarding.
It's a huge blessing. It is.
It's like when we when we had the recent watermelon festival, that was in September, there was a lot of new faces there. And then part of the day I was wearing a Marker Cellars shirt and whatnot, and a couple people said, "Hey, I heard about y'all."
Yeah.
I don't care whether they like wine or not.
Right, exactly.
That really, it doesn't matter. But the fact that somebody else had said, "Yeah, go out there and see that place," or go talk to Mark and see. You know, I'm not a soothsayer at all, but I think that if you have a drive to serve, and that doesn't mean you have to do something every day.
No.
My wife's driven Meals on Wheels. She managed the Meals on Wheels program in Argyle for 18 years.
Wow.
And then so when we got back out here, she's driving in Boyd. But eventually she'll be back here and be part of our organization. But
just give it back.
That's right.
And that's what, I think that's what we're here for. I mean, really and truly, all of us. So,
and the other
it's a decision.
No, absolutely.
Back to the one, it's a decision.
You can walk away.
Yeah, you have to make a decision.
You can close your eyes and say, I want somebody else to do that work. But that's not how I want my kids to see me. Because
I know
seeing is learning.
I know you mentioned Snowmageddon, we were all frozen in, nobody could move, and it was crazy. And if y'all are not aware of what I'm talking about, it was a pretty big deal here in 2021, and a lot of people were frozen in. We have a local Facebook page, which is about as full as drama, as you can imagine, but you saw the heart of the people. And one of my favorite was getting on Facebook and seeing someone say, "There's a little old man that lives on the corner of something. I don't know his name, but I see him out a lot and I'm worried about him. Could somebody check on him?" And almost immediately there were like 5 people that said, "You know what, I have a 4-wheel drive. I live a couple blocks. I'll head over there." And they just went and checked on this stranger whom they had never met to make sure he had food and he was okay. And that's the kind of community we live in. And I love that. And of course, then some of that filters out here. They come out here.
About that. Well, and with the things that you and I are involved in town, it's an opportunity, and I really mean this, to challenge people who probably are going to get out of their comfort zone to serve.
Yes.
Or to volunteer, or what have you, and it's it takes time. And
it does.
And some people are scared.
They are, but it's so worth it. So worth it.
Yeah, the feedback and as well as the what you receive in return. There's no accounting for that.
No, there's not.
It's just not. It's rewarding.
It makes life worth living.
Yep.
It does.
Yep, absolutely. I agree.
Well, I want to make sure and mention all about the winery. So you have Wine Club.
Yeah.
And so tell about Wine Club for a minute, and then I want you to talk about location, website, and all that stuff. Okay.
Well, yeah. So we started a wine club for patrons who come to the winery. Probably this is our 8th year, I guess, out of 10. And all it is, it gives you an opportunity to. Your commitment is you have to buy 6 bottles of wine from me over the course of a year. Basically, that's the minimum. There's also larger packages to put together, but for that, you get 15% off of any alcohol, cider, anything that purchased, as well as you get to taste anything that's made new at no charge. That gives you an opportunity to explore your palate and to something that maybe you never drank before or you don't care for. Also gives you an opportunity and first dibs on any of tickets available to our special events. We do
You do a lot of special events.
Yeah, I mean that's the big ones. Well, we do monthly music and food, you know that. But then, like in December this year, we'll do a wine and food pairing dinner. Last year we did it one night. It sold out almost immediately. And so this year we're doing it 2 nights. We're going to do it Friday night and then later Sunday afternoon for about 30 to 35 people per seating. But the reason for that is it gives me the opportunity to dig into my library of wine that we've stashed away or that we have new in the barrel or in the tank, and let Chef Dave, who is one of my employees, pair those wines up with a food that he'll produce.
Oh, good. Okay.
Last year we did it, call it tapas style, so small bites. So five different dishes, if you will,
or courses, I guess.
Courses paired individually with a different wine, and then a dessert.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's fun. It gives me an opportunity to talk to people.
It's a more intimate setting. It's private.
And we did it. The weather cooperated so well. We did it out on the patio last year.
Wow!
In the first week of December.
That's incredible.
Right? So you never know.
Yeah.
The backup plan
is the
move into the event center.
Right.
And then in February, normally not too either around my birthday, which is the 23rd, or before around Valentine's Day. We'll do a wine and cheese pairing event.
Oh, okay.
And we work with a cheesemonger in Denton at a restaurant called 10 to 1, and I take 12 different varieties of wine, and he figures out which cheeses to pair with those wines, and then gives me the history of that cheese.
I love that.
Because they come from all over the world.
Oh, wow.
And why, the reasoning behind why does this cheese pair with this wine?
Oh.
And
why does it work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's the difference between this Gruyere and this goat cheese and this, whatever, blah, 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 whatever it is. And that has become very, very popular.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's a way, it's also a way for mostly guys to be able to take care of their significant other for Valentine's or around Valentine's and whatnot. And
I love that.
So it's kind of a win-win. And we learn. I mean, I watched other wineries do similar events, and I said, well, we can do that.
Yeah.
We can. It's not a big deal.
Not a big deal. No.
So So I mean, and then we don't do big events. We try not to do big events in June and July just because as the temperature rises. We'll do indoor events. We'll use the event center, turn the air conditioners on, and have smaller music players, a lot of acoustic stuff, and that sort of thing.
And then you're open, so I know that you're open, Thursday, Friday?
Thursday through Sunday.
Right, so it's Thursday afternoon and Friday afternoon.
Yeah, 12 to 6 each day, all 3 days, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And then on Sunday, I'm a sports guy, so I like to close at 5 so I can catch at least a little bit of leftover football, or right now it's baseball playoffs. And that.
So, okay, so we've talked about he's located outside of Alvord. It's not far from downtown Alvord.
It's 3 miles.
It's 3 miles, So what's your website?
It's markercellars.com.
It's easy.
Yep.
And they can order wine online?
Yes, and we don't take your credit card over the web right now. We will. But right now, we'll call you back and give you payment information and that sort of thing.
So you will ship?
Oh yeah, we ship. We ship to right now 10 or 11 states.
I remember several years ago, I saw you going into a place that has FedEx, and UPS, and you had boxes and boxes and shipping that wine everywhere.
That's part of wine club, because we as people join the wine club,
and they visit, they'll come in and visit and then join, right?
Yeah, but some of them, I like, even during COVID, they were, I'm just making this up, but they're on the far east side of the Metroplex, in East Dallas, and they were shut in, so to speak. And we did a lot of shipping and a lot of delivery to folks that way. But we do ship. I mean, we've got customers in California, believe it or not, Florida.
That's incredible.
New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Ohio, that sort of thing. Yeah,
that's incredible.
Just one plug.
Please.
So this tells you how crazy this business really is. I have one set of 3 customers that live outside of Madison, Wisconsin. And they drive down here once a year on their what they call their spring break, and spend 3 days here at the winery.
Really?
And then they pack their stuff up and they go home, and I don't see them for a year, but I hear back from them periodically.
Wow, that's incredible.
Some of the nicest gentlemen and ladies that
incredible.
I've ever met. And
this is their vacation. I love that. I love that.
Staying in Decatur, Texas.
Yeah, exactly.
From Madison, Ohio. Madison, Wisconsin. I mean, you can't.
Do they bring the cheese with them?
They bring cheese curds. That's Wisconsin's
That
known
is
for cheese
incredible. Curds. That is incredible.
Yeah, you just can't make this stuff up.
Well, normally I ask for tips or encouragement, and you've encouraged throughout the entire thing. You've given a lot of tips. Is there any other, for somebody struggling to make their decision, or that one life-changing decision? So
if you, I was a psychology major in college.
Were you really?
And back then my grandmother says, well, you're either going to become a doctor or a minister. One of the two.
So you became a bartender.
That's what I became a bartender.
Best of both worlds.
But I think the best advice is, if you're struggling with a decision, and this isn't, you hear that at church.
Yes.
Right? If your heart is hurting and you're struggling with a decision, you got to talk to somebody. Share your feelings. Explain, maybe not the gory details of where you're at, but and you'll find encouragement. If it's somebody you trust, if it's somebody that you can be open with, and okay, I'm just going to say one more thing that's related to that, but not exactly. So when we first started making our Legend Series wine, for those that don't know what that means, we decided to honor military veterans. And so the first guy that we put on the bottle was a gentleman by the name of Blue Gamble. He was on Becky's Meals on Wheels route, living in the horrible trailer for 15 years. And so about 5 years before he passed away, one of the drivers who was delivering meals to his house got him talking about what he did in World War II. And he had never talked to his kids about it.
As we were ending our time together, the battery ran out of the camera, but I wanted to share the rest of the story that Mark was telling. As Becky, Mark's wife, found out about this gentleman's service in World War II, she came and shared it with Mark. As a result, it opened the door for Mark to begin the Legend Series wines to honor veterans. The very first one had his picture on the label. What they found is that many veterans will come to the winery, and as they sit, sipping the wine, they often begin to open up about their service. Friends and family are often surprised because they've never shared their experience with the family. Now they bring their challenge coins, and Mark has established this display to honor our veterans and to show them how much they appreciate the sacrifice. Next time you're in the area, drop by and see what a truly amazing place Marker Cellars is. You will be glad you did.